That's something that I can offer direct evidence about. I just serendipitously, as a young college student who 10 years previously had been one of the 140 American school children enrolled in Project Pegasus, I had a brief encounter with Barack Obama when I was an undergraduate at UCLA, and he had spent a year at Columbia University under the tutelage of Zbigniew Brzezinski, and was in Los Angeles visiting his friends from the first 2 years of college that he spent at Occidental College out near Eagle Rock, California. And we were introduced to each other at the West Los Angeles home of one of Barack Obama's allies in the anti-apartheid movement. And so I have a view of Barack Obama that is informed by this 30-minute discussion that we had in that individual's apartment. And I think I could say that Barack Obama at 20, I mean, he's a month older than I. We're truly contemporaries. And this was in spring-summer of 1982 timeframe, so both of us had not yet turned 21. The Barack Obama that I met at age 20 was intelligent, perceptive, and articulate, and I'm not surprised at all that he reached the U.S. presidency and at such a young age. He was also a positive person, a friendly, thoughtful person. And I think he's brought a number of those more sort of warm and human qualities into his service in government. So I would like to, I'm a registered Democrat, and I would like to presume that he will do the right thing and embrace my truth campaign in some of these major areas, acknowledging in the realm of natural history that Mars is inhabited and that we've already sent personnel there, working with the disclosure movement to bring some of these advanced technologies, declassify them and bring them into the public realm so that the public can understand, for example, that we can teleport between distant locations on Earth, and also work with lawyers who are aligned with the disclosure movement, such as I am, to begin to draft the legislation and initiate the truth and amnesty process that we need to declassify these secrets and perform this corrective function in our political culture. If I had to say today whether I have hope that he will or he won't, well, that's going to be governed by what I found out during that 1982 meeting with Barack Obama, and that was he had already been briefed on his presidency. One of the bizarre political concomitants of the fact that this quantum access capability emerged by 1970 is that a number of the last U.S. presidents, including Barack Obama, were given prior knowledge of their destinies as U.S. president. And that included himself because at the end of that very voluble political discussion I had with the young Barack Obama from Columbia when I was at UCLA was a statement made by the person who had introduced us, the person who I had gone from the UCLA campus over to his apartment in West LA to meet his house guest, Barack Obama, who said during the end of that discussion, you better be nice to Barack, Andy, because he's going to be president of the United States someday. And then I said something flippant like, oh, well, maybe we'll pitch against each other in the World Series. And then Obama used that as an excuse to break away from what was ultimately pretty much an argument by that point in the discussion. And then his friend turned to me again and said, no, you don't understand, Andy. We know he's going to be president of the United States. So clearly Barack Obama, during that year, probably during that year that he was under the tutelage of Brzezinski at Columbia, had already been informed of his destiny as president in the same way that I, both as a child and as a young adult, had had a set of briefings about the fact that I would one day be identified as the discoverer of life on Mars, or at least the person who would write the first work essentially proving that Mars is an inhabited planet. This, in fact, was the first usage of the phrase person of interest. The first persons of interest weren't terrorists aligned with Al-Qaeda. They were young Americans that the intelligence community was identifying as culturally significant in the future based on what their respective destinies were. And I know to a personal certainty that both Barack Obama, as one of my contemporaries, and myself were given this form of knowledge of our destinies. So to the extent that he was given this prior information, I mean, if I speak for myself, I'm speaking out now as a whistleblower. That's the decision I've made, to be true to the truth and to do right by the people of the world and of my own country. I hope that President Obama possesses the intelligence and the principle to also do so and embrace my truth campaign. I hope that he sees the truth campaign that I'm waging as essentially a prerequisite for the change campaign that he's called for. Because you really can't achieve change until you confront the truth. And in order to do that, we're going to have to declassify the different set of activities that the U.S. government has been up to so that we can really reform our political culture and achieve the lofty purposes that he set his presidency to. So I'm hoping he'll do the right thing, but I really don't want to prejudice his decision because it is his. In the same way that I chose to speak out and do what was right, and now I find Cliff High at the ALTA project identifying me as one of two major planetary whistleblowers that are going to come along that were predicted by ALTA. I mean, I'm very flattered by that, but I really see it as a duty that I take very seriously to be performing this form of public service. And I'm just hoping and praying that my contemporary Barack Obama will also do so, and I think that he will. So that would be my answer, but I don't know because it really comes down to what he personally decides to do.
Well, from what you've described there, it seems to me that it could either have been a projection of his destiny, or on the sort of downside of it, that he could be more of a Manchurian candidate. But I suppose that's something time will tell.
Time will only tell, and I think if I look at my own experience, I think it's more or less not being cultivated by the intelligence community, but just the fact that they clearly didn't want to play God and intervene and change future events. That was not only the institutional decision that had been made, that was the wide consensus among the project people that I had contact with, for example, when I was on the project as a kid. But I do know, based on that statement that was made in Barack Obama's presence and the briefings that I received, for example, when they had me read my paper, The Discovery of Life on Mars, in 1971, 37 years before I would write it, as a result of them retrieving it from the future and bringing it back from the future. We also know that they were clearly intervening in the lives of individuals like George W. Bush and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and giving them prior knowledge of their presidencies, which may not have been such a bad thing. I mean, the presidency brings with it tremendous responsibility and tremendous positive potential for change, for positive change, and also substantial potential for negative development. And so it may have been very, very well the responsible thing to do to achieve survival and peace and progressive development in the nuclear age, to approach the future presence just so they could psychologically adjust to the fact that they were destined to be present. But I know that's happened, and I'm hoping that the involvement with President Obama wasn't so substantial that he's just carrying out what the permanent secret government is asking of him, rather than being the kind of free agent that I am and doing what's right in real time, notwithstanding the prior contact we had in our lives and careers with the alphabet soup, U.S. intelligence agencies. I mean, I think it ultimately comes down to personal morality, and I don't want to predict what he will decide to do, because I will just hope and pray that he does the right thing and embraces my truth campaign. I'm going to be calling on him to do so, and I want to remain optimistic that he will determine that he should do so and will do so.
Andy, jumping back a bit from the subject we've been on right now, I just want to go back to a couple of points you mentioned earlier, one of them being that you said that you felt or were aware that the government had been in contact with extraterrestrials.
Most certainly it has been. Mm-hmm.
And what are you basing that on, and how much contact do you think there is, and is it still continuing?
Well, I'm going to describe in my book the conventional contact with extraterrestrials that I had, both of a physical nature and a psychological nature. And a number of those anecdotes are quite conventional, and I don't think really add to the discourse about the extraterrestrial situation that's evolved over the last, 60-some years since Roswell, and since the time, the modern UFO era.